And welcome, viewers. It is the Daily Space Weather coming at you once again from the Smash News Network, least busted name of news. And don't worry, folks, we're just bringing you the most detailed imagery of the sun and most comprehensive space weather in the known universe. There is no competition. So here is the southeastern limb. We do have new sunspots showing up in the southeastern limb. We've also got new sunspots showing up in the northeastern limb. We've also got huge prominences. This one's been named Stella Lesher by one of our Twitter acquaintances. We've also got coronal mass ejections to cover. Huge prominentiary filaments, like this one up here. I think that one might be the Dick Van Dyke. Yes, we're naming filaments after living people. And the southwestern limb features some coronal mass ejection activity. Also, I believe the James Comer filament has ejected. So thanks for leaving a comment, Robert. And here's the great full disk imagery here in those same wavelengths, which are 304 plus 193 angstroms. So we have had some sunspots vanish, and we've had some sunspots appear. So we've got some new sunspots down here, some new sunspots up here, some growth over here, and some decay over here. So overall, let's see. We might see a flat sunspot number today, might be a slight uptick or even a slight downtick, depends on what goes on in the next 12 hours or so. Here's your colorized magnetogram. That is like the last imagery yesterday plus today. Let's take a look at volcanoes as Chukarachki is now back on the list. Chukarachki there, south of Japan. Paramushir Island, now producing a 14,000-foot plume of volcanic ash as Chukarachki explodes. Flight level 140 over Paramushir Island. Sakurajima volcanic ash not identifiable. Don't assume it's not erupting. Subanosejima exploded, produced a 4,000-foot ash plume. Semeru, 14,000-foot ash plume over East Java from Semeru. 21,000-foot ash plume over central Mexico as Popocatépetl explodes. Yes, Popocatépetl. It's a flight level 210 as a result of Popocatépetl explosive activity. Go ahead, say it aloud, folks. You can do it. Popocatépetl. It's fun. Nevado del Ruiz in Colombia also exploding, flight level 190. That's a 19,000-foot plume of volcanic ash over Colombia. Sangay in Ecuador exploding, flight level 200. Revenador in Ecuador exploding, flight level 150. Cotopaxi exploding in Ecuador, flight level 210. And Sabancaya were unable to detect. Man, it looks like the best place to go on a volcanic vacation is indeed Ecuador. If you do, leave your vault pole at home. Don't pole vault the caldera. If you do want to support the channel, consider becoming a member of the Smash Team at smashomash.com/Smash Team. We launched our own subscription services site because, well, Patreon just couldn't do it for us. So we've got our own. Of course, we didn't really want to give Patreon a cut. We still have to give our bank a cut. So we just decided to go that route because, hey, you've got the most capabilities if you've got your own website, right? And if you've got an online business or even an offline business that needs a website, drop us a line. Smash staff does build websites, so we'd be more than happy to hook you up with one. And if you want to support the channel, become a member of the Smash Team at the gold or silver level, smashomash.com/Smash Team. The best value is the gold annual paid-up subscription. It includes complimentary merch. It's like getting 4 months gold membership for free. If you check the red bubble link below the video, you'll see our merch items in order of best selling. Very colorful, very high-level prints. The print quality is extremely high. Universum liberate. Why? Because reasons. And congratulations on surviving a global pandemic so far. You're doing a fine job. Today's featured product is a re-release of one of our first merch items ever. Smasher Price My First Pandemic. So again, congratulations on surviving your likely first pandemic. – You've been doing a fine job. Now, the real question that we have to ask is, where's the accountability? Has your nation also turned into a banana republic with rife corporatism, corruption, and a complete lack of accountability? Well, the facts are, folks, that it always comes. Accountability always comes. It doesn't matter who you are. Eventually, the playing field will be leveled. And perhaps you'll be leveled if you don't think accountability always comes, because it's just simply a fact that it does. So while our finest days lie ahead, some people have some very dark days ahead. And when we say accountability always comes, it's kind of important to note that markets do not forgive or forget. So while I might forgive, I don't forget either. Let's take a look at some accountability here. Oh, hey, look, it's Apple, one of those companies that censors people. You know, by banning people from iTunes. There's their one-year chart. How's that working out? How about, how about Alphabet? How's their one-year chart looking? Oh, not so good. Another organization that bans people and attempts to silence them for citing facts. Whoops! I guess the markets must have noticed that too. What about, what about Meta? Let's see the one-year chart of Meta. Whoops! Also down significantly on the year. Why? Because accountability always comes, folks. So we are also on Patreon if you want to support us that way. We are there, 3 membership levels. Of course, the silver membership level at smashomash.com/smashteam is only $2.99 a month. And let's get to earthquakes. So there's the last 90 days of seismic activity here. Things have calmed down quite a bit since the 9th of January. And let's see what's been shaken for the past 24 hours. We'll go over everything over a 5 magnitude quake like this 5.1 in the Band AC. That one came in at 1547 yesterday. And the largest quake of the past 24 hours came at Iran. Yes, Iran. A 5.9 magnitude struck Iran at 1814 Universal Time yesterday evening. Probably did cause some damage, as there are many buildings in Iran not exactly built to modern code. Also a 5.3 at Indonesia there. That one coming in just over an hour later at the other side of the planet. So yeah, no major quakes over the past 24. There was a 5.0 at the Philippines. That came in at 4:23 this morning. And let's continue on, because it's time to get back to space. So here's this is a new great set of wavelengths that we've started showing regularly on the channel. Of course, you can make your own at helioviewer.org. And this is 171 plus 131 angstroms. It's great at showing the location of magnetic fields, since plasma aligns to magnetic fields. And you can see great examples of that there in those 2 wavelengths. I believe that is the coolest and the hottest wavelength also. 171 shows the lower corona. 131 shows the very hot corona. So here's just 171 by itself. And the radio flux has dipped down to 138. I believe is the radio flux, 138 solar flux units. Let us know in the comments if you think it's going to dip below 130 before coming back up, perhaps even surpassing 234, which is the to-date solar cycle 25 high. Next, looking at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard here to see no geomagnetic storms or unrest forecasted by NOAA. No arguments there, at least not at the moment. We'll talk about coronal mass ejections later in the video. Planetary K-index is at 2. It's geomagnetically calm conditions. The KP2 is the current scenario. And here is the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. We've had a pretty steady high-speed coronal hole wind stream coming in. Not a lot of variations. It's pretty unremarkable. We show this imagery daily on the channel anyway. And we remind our viewers that Earth's magnetic field is still there. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. So, of course, the likelihood that the end is near is so incredibly statistically low that it's just not so likely. Anyway, there's the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Again, things quite calm here on planet Earth. No major shifts apparently happening there at the moment. So here's a real-time solar wind data. We've got a solar wind density of about 8.3 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed here just over 500 kilometers per second. Again, pretty uninteresting here over the past 24 hours, although we did recently see a minor shift in the phi angle. Besides that, steady solar wind. GOES magnetometers here showing a fairly normal range. It's a pretty weak coronal hole wind stream. It's not causing a lot of perturbations on planet Earth. And let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet next, as Earth lies in a South Pole oriented current sheet, depicted here in red. North Pole current sheet here rotating to the far side of the sun at the moment. And in a day or two, I'll tell you welcome to the South Solar Pole, because, well, most of the South Solar Polar magnetism will be directed toward Earth. So here's our line of sight field plot. You can see the sun's B field depicted here in blue. That is the field that goes through the magnet if this magnet is the sun. And if you're wondering where the data is derived, it's from 51 ground-based magnetometers. Magnetometers on stereo A here at Lagrange 5 and magnetometer here at stereo B at Lagrange 4. So there is the line of sight field plot. Let's move to coronal holes next, as we watch the field migration happen, probably the most important feature of a solar cycle, as the South Pole becomes the North, and vice versa. So we've still got a long way to go for that process to be anywhere near completed. And as you can see up here, you still got some significant green areas there right near the North Polar region. Those need to be at the South Polar region by next solar minimum, which is probably like 6 years off, something like that. And yeah, so what do we have? We've got South Pole-oriented coronal holes mostly here. There is some North Pole magnetism as well down here in the southeast. Let's bring up the latest image. All right, so we've got all South Pole magnetism here except for up here. So these coronal holes over here, which are not really visible because of the lumpy corona, these are North Pole over here. These are all south, south, and south. So that's the 211 angstroms wavelength from SDO. Fantastic at showing those coronal holes from which high-speed solar winds emanate. Anyway, it's time to move to the realm of sunspots. An important feature of solar cycles, however, I think the magnetic field reversal features are more important. What I'm saying is, yes, coronal holes, in my opinion, are more important in terms of sunspot cycles and solar activity in general than sunspots. Yes. You may or may not be aware of the fact that there is an inverse proportional relationship between the polar fields and the toroidal fields. So yes, when we see a star or a galaxy even with bright jets, bright jets, then we tend to see them with a dim equator. And when we see them with a bright equator, we tend to see them with dim jets. It's just the inverse proportional relationship that we see between the toroidal regions and the poloidal regions of both stars and galaxies and probably even planets. Anyway, and what I'm saying is, folks, is that at solar minimum, we have very strong fields at the poles. And we have weak fields around the solar equator. But around solar maximum, we have weak fields at the poles and strong fields around the equator. Also, the sun gets brighter around the equator, solar flares. Anyway, So likelihood of solar flares not super high here. We do have some candidates that are magnetically complex enough to produce solar flares. However, we've seen a drop in X-ray flux. Let's take a look at, this is 1700 angstroms plus 171. Great at showing the active regions that are most relevant for sunspot analysis. So we've seen this group degrade. We've seen some growth over here. We've seen some umbral migration over here and some new sunspots down here and up here. So here's a closer view of that. We believe we'll have at least two more named sunspot groups by the end of day today. We may have a sunspot group lose a name also, although there are still umbrae up there, so maybe those haven't completely evaporated. We'll show you the high-res imagery here toward the end of the video, the end of our bonus feature segment before meteorology. Next, we'll look at energetic particles. We ain't got none. The ghost proton flux remains flatlined. And again, the X-ray profile has dipped. So now the background output for X-rays is in the B-class range, at least for the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. The opposite side of the sun, quite active. It's a North Pole fest at the moment, as there are lots of sunspots on the other side of the sun, just not quite so many on the earthly side of the sun. Remember, folks, we're only counting sunspots when they are on the earthly-facing portion of the solar disk. Let's take a look at X-rays. Actually, this is ultraviolet light, but these are the best wavelengths to view X-rays. That's 94 angstroms. We'll also show 131 angstroms. Good times. And before we go to things like coronal mass ejections and filaments, let's orient ourselves in the solar system, perhaps even the galaxy and universe. So here's a star chart of what's going on overhead in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to press the Now button. This is skyandtelescope.org, by the way. And here's a little fun fact. If you are able to see the Big Dipper, right? Now, right there's the Big Dipper, okay? And so there's the handle, right? See, here's the handle. And then here's the dipper itself. Let me move that again. Fun fact about the Big Dipper. All right, now you see these. This is where the liquid would spill out of the Big Dipper. You see that? Where the liquid would spill out of the Big Dipper, there are two stars that make a line. If you follow that line, guess where it points? It points directly at Polaris. So if you want to find the North Star, if you're able to find the Big Dipper, those two stars at the end of the Big Dipper, they form a line that points directly at Polaris. Fun fact. Anyway, that's what's going on overhead in Lehigh Valley. If you are up before dawn and you have clear skies and low light pollution, you may see Mercury rising ahead of the sun. Here's a solar system forecast the next 7 days. And there's where things will be in 1 week. We are 8 days from a full moon here. And let's take a look at some coronagraphs. So these are yesterday. We've got some missing data here from the Soho LASCO C3 at the moment. So we're looking at George Mason University's Space Weather Lab Stereo A imagery. There are the images from yesterday. It's only 31 frames, unfortunately, and here are another 9 frames from today. You see a big CME coming out the southern portion of the closest star. And let's do a little further analysis of that with Soho LASCO C3 at Lagrange 1 and Stereo A on the left. So here's Soho LASCO C3. For you new viewers, Earth would be behind you from this perspective. That satellite's located about 1 million miles between Earth and Sun at Lagrangian point 1. And from Stereo A's perspective, Earth would be off on this line somewhere. And the point is, we don't see any earthly directed coronal mass ejections. Again, there is a little bit of missing data here, so there could be some stealthy diffuse plasma headed Earth's way, but if so, it's very minor. That CME coming out of the south does not appear to be earthly directed either. You can see the last frames here on Soho LASCO C3 make it look like it's not only off to the south, but a little bit off to the west. Also, there's a comet showing up here right at the end. Check it out, right there. Comet just showing up in frame there. Fantastic. So that's going to look awesome tomorrow. Make sure you tune in for tomorrow's daily space weather video. There's the last 24 hours in composite. Here we'll zoom out a little bit. And let's zoom out a little bit more to see if we see that comet rolling in. Not showing up there on the HelioViewer movie, so that'll be something to look at. In fact, let's take a look at that. Go to Space Weather Modeling, the Space Weather Prediction Center. Can I type? Thanks. Let's just take a look at that LASCO coronagraph. The heck? Ancient data there showing up. So anyway, let's just go back here one more time. I'm going to take a look at George Mason University again. Nope. All right, anyway. That is most of the data from the last 24 hours. We've got some missing data from Soho LASCO C2 for whatever reason, and let's continue on here. Filaments is next. Filaments are next. The James Comer filament looks like it has either collapsed or ejected. It's there, and then whoops, it's gone. I think it might have collapsed as I saw some brightening over here, but anyway. That's what's going on from the perspective of Learmonth, Australia. This is a huge filament over here. And perhaps it should get a name, perhaps not. I don't know. If you want to name filaments, do it on Twitter. Tag us. Name your filaments after living people. Again, the latest is the Stella Lescher filament. So make sure you join us on Twitter for that. Wow, we went all the way up to 373 followers and then back down to 372 followers. Hey, Elon, we insist that you remove the deboost features from our account. In fact, you should remove the deboost features from everybody's account because it shouldn't be a thing that exists. I know you've taken the Crime Syndicate private now, so, of course, the guidelines for criminality are much lower. However, it's still a crime syndicate. So follow us on Twitter. Speaking of crime syndicates, we are most of our content's on YouTube. Thanks to everybody who's tolerated the disgusting and putrid censorship on the platform the past pushing 6 years, as we just produce the most detailed space weather content in the known universe. There are also other playlists there that have original music, like the 12 Days of Smashmas by our Golden Cap Productions record label. Cosmology segments, over 250 of them. SmashOmash.org presents the sun, terms defined, the diamond anvil too hard to smash, and lots more. So if you're only viewing on BitChute, make sure you view on YouTube. Thanks again to our YouTube subscribers. Press like, subscribe, share, etc. Leave a comment, and so on. And welcome to the Neo Renaissance, by the way. So help us out with clicks. If you're unwilling to do anything else, visit the website at SmashOmash.com, our homepage. And hit us up on social media. Let us know in the comments what your favorite social media is. We are all over the internet. SmashOmash.com is our homepage. Massive ability to find links there. So please do so. And we'll see you on the interwebs. Now we're seeing the last about 2.5 hours. And this huge filament up here is still hanging out for days. The Stella Lescher filament is looking pretty stable. This one down here is bye. It's headed off to the southwest of Earth. And let's take a look at some wavelengths that we don't normally view. Here's the last 24 hours in 4,500 angstroms wavelength and 335. And if you've stayed tuned this long, I figured I'd show you something a little more exotic that we don't normally show. That 4,500 angstroms wavelength appears to show the double extended corona. Of course, most of the features that you're seeing there are the 335 angstroms wavelength. And this brings us to our bonus features segment. So So the next thing we should talk about is charging hazards. Do we have any? Only some minor surface charging hazards here in the eastern Pacific. Besides that, smooth sailing for satellites. Electron flux here has come into more normal levels. There you go. There's the GOES electron flux for the past 3 days. Here is the forecast model for the relativistic electrons by NOAA. And no arguments there from me. The green boxes are the forecast, the yellow diamonds are the observation. Here's the 1-year chart to put it in context as it creeps up into a normal operating range. We'll show the F layer of the ionosphere since we've been noting some quite interesting anomalies in the F ionosphere layer. We show it because that's where the GOES 16 and 18 are making their measurements. So here's the vibrational frequency of the bridge between Earth and space. That is the F layer of the ionosphere's vibrational frequency. It's located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. And continued anomalies here in the eastern Pacific. Why? Because the South Atlantic anomaly didn't only leave the South Atlantic. It didn't only leave the South American continent. It's now in the Central Pacific instead of the South Pacific. So this is what you would expect to see when the Earth's magnetic fields are aligned right at its poles. You'd expect to see the anomaly right at the equator, a more normal situation. And so it's the South Atlantic anomaly is now somewhere around here. We're not exactly even fully sure where it is. It seems to be moving around. And perhaps it refutes some theories as to how Earth's magnetic dynamo is generated. But in any case, here's your anomalygram. This is anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. And now it's almost looking like it's back over the South American continent again. So it seems like the South Atlantic anomaly has moved from here to here, back down here, and then up here, and now back to where it was like 6 weeks ago. So that's really weird. And of course, if huge mantle plumes or outer core dynamos made of liquid iron are causing it, there would have been a lot of material having to have moved around in order for all of those sudden changes to happen. Why wasn't it accompanied by massive earthquakes? Well, your guess is as good as mine. But it's the South Atlantic anomaly could be back over the South American continent again now. I mean, it looks almost like it's returned back to where it was. So my best guess is now that it's back over the South American continent based on that imagery. So that's pretty interesting, wouldn't you say? Anyway, we'll briefly show you the latest images here. I believe we're the only channel that covers the ionosphere. Other channels make ridiculous claims about the ionosphere and don't seem to understand the physics or do anything with predictive value. So anyway, there's the latest image. That's 11:15 Universal Time. There's the anomalygram. And let's look at the total electron content as well, as it's been returning to normal. So total electron content depicts the free electrons between your GPS satellite and your handset. That's about 12,500 miles of altitude where that is located. And here is the total electron content forecast. CTIPE stands for coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics. Because your GPS signal has to pass through the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt, the outer plasmasphere, the inner Van Allen belt, the inner plasmasphere, and the ionosphere. So there are a potentially lot of electrons there. And, we've got higher levels of electron flux at the F layer, but we've got a more organized total electron content. So this is what we see when we have higher levels of electron flux. When we see very low levels, we see very anomalous total electron contents. Things are looking much more normal here, concentrated around the equator at noon. Those are the facts. And we just keep stating them on the channel, regardless of how much nonsense, propaganda, fraud, and crap about space weather you might find on YouTube. And there is plenty. If you don't believe me, just take my word for it. I don't know. You're not going to catch me lying to you. So the facts. So here's your latest magnetogram and intensitygram. So we've got new sunspots down here. Those don't have names yet. That'll be a beta gamma class sunspot group. Multiple ombre there. Here's another sunspot group. That'll probably get a name as well. So there's at least two new sunspot groups that should get names. There's another group up here that might get a name if it sticks around for 12 hours or more. And yeah, so anyway, here's the rock back, the full disk view. And it's time to move to meteorology. Yes, I realized about 15 years ago that it's way too easy to forecast the weather, and I needed additional challenges. So that's part of the reason why the Smash News Network least busted name of news does meteorology segments, to throw in some bonus features for the viewer. Today we're going to start by looking at temperature. So it's going to be the story throughout the week here, as there's some incredibly cold Arctic air making its way deep into the U.S. Right now, making it all the way down to Texas, as you see these direct north to south wind lines there. That's the surface winds and the surface temperatures. And parts of the U.S. are experiencing some fairly chilly temperatures right now. Like right there where it's negative 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Negative 32 Fahrenheit. Just north of the western portion of Lake Superior there. So a little bit on the cool side. And let's look at some weather. Here are the surface winds of the eastern world. Shout out to our viewers from all around the planet. Here are the jet streams. Shout out to our viewers from Munda, from Ova, the Equator, and even from you viewers who like clam chowder. Those are the jet streams of the east. Here are the jet streams of the west. If you've got a clam chowder recipe, hit us up on smashamash.com/forum. It's totally free, and there is a thread about recipes. Share yours. You can find out our recipe about taco bakes and lots more. Strong jet stream here over the eastern part of the U.S., as there is a bit of a convergence happening there. Surface winds are looking like this. Again, you can see those north to south winds there making their way down into Texas with some Canadian air, which is less than warm. Next, surface winds of the central world and the jet streams looking like this. It's another bad day for Viking raids, by the way. It is windy and probably high seas between Iceland and Scotland. If you're on a Viking longboat, let us know in the comments. Next, our clouds and fog imagery here. The NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suites 3.9 nanometer radiation map depicting croissant Earth on a spherical globe. Yes, Earth. It's croissant-shaped, if you weren't aware. These are like sands through the hourglass of time. These are the clouds and fog of our lives. Next, your weather.gov map. If your location is lit, click your location. We'll briefly scroll down to show the key. It's looking like it's pretty stormy around Hawaii. Drop us a line if you've got some imagery of big waves. Some flood watches there around the Gulf Coast. And let's do some forecasts. So first, a cold forecast. Yeah, temperature anomaly. That is temperature anomaly in degrees Celsius based on the 72-hour GFS model. And yeah, you can expect, geez, it's going to be some cold times for Colorado. I don't think all the hot air coming out of the state of Colorado is going to do much for that. Although there is an extra lot of hot air coming right out of this area. Interestingly enough, I know some people from that area, and they often produce a lot of hot air. Drop us a line in the comments if you know who I'm talking about. Shout out to those who stopped saying the end is near when they realized their grift is over. Next, 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. And there's some icing coming to the south-central U.S. Mississippi Valley is going to have some ice on it. And we'll also show the total positive snow depth change forecast. Again, the GFS 72-hour model there. That is the positive snow depth change in inches. Once again, all that hot air, it's not going to prevent a lot of snow from falling on Colorado, which is fitting because there are a lot of snow jobbers in Colorado. Next, we're going to show the European model here. Here's the next 3 days of snow based on the Euro model. A little bit different than the GFS, and here are the differences. So that's the Euro model. There is the GFS model. Again, the Euro model and the GFS model and the Euro model. And let's move on. We don't want the video to be too lengthy. Here is your NASA GOES lightning mapper. And some significant lightning there in East Texas and around the Gulf Coast. Let's see if we have any active terrestrial cells. And it looks like we may. So we always like to check out lightningmaps.org to tell you where the teeth of the storms are and give that a moment to connect there as it is. Let's just press refresh. There we go. All right. So what do we got? Do we have active cells at Shreveport, it looks like? Yeah, in between College Station and Shreveport, south of Tyler. And also just off the Gulf Coast there, south of Beaumont. And some active cells in Houston. Hey, Houston. There's thunder rolling in. Where the hell are the thunderclaps? Maybe it was silent lightning, folks. There should be thunder propagating there. I don't know what happened. And let's just zoom out and show the world map and move on and close this thing out. So there's your real-time lightning map. East Texas, seeing some activity. And we should be showing the U.S. Doppler radar next. There's a U.S. Doppler map. We'll focus on the lower 48. Let's take a brief look at Hawaii there, as there is some significant activity there. And here are the lower 48 states of AUSA, the allegedly United States of America, former nation, now Banana Republic. Here is clouds and fog. Croissant Earth, once again, cast onto a spherically shaped map. And there is water vapor. That shows all the water vapor, not just that which is condensed onto clouds. And it is my favorite map when my Doppler is not clear. Here's your recap. There's where the Doppler is clear. Lots of moisture here headed to the northeast. There is clouds and fog, 3.9 nanometer infrared radiation from a NASA GOES interactive satellite suite. And oh, one last thing. You see all these lines right here? You see all these lines? Those are not chemtrails, you see? Because the resolution of this map is 1 kilometer. So if you've ever seen a 1 kilometer wide chemtrail produced by a plane, that wasn't a chemtrail, since those aren't a thing. Anyway, we'll close out with the water vapor map. We're sure we offended somebody with this video, so make sure you press like, subscribe, share, etc. Tell your friends and foes about the channel. Thanks for tuning in, and congratulations on realizing that it exists. We'll talk to you soon. Oh, and the score projection will be San Francisco 24, Eagles 37. Talk to you soon, and may that solar wind be at your back. Facts stated in this video suppressed for your improvement of your online experience by criminal big tech organizations. Opinions stated in this video not necessarily opinions of Smash News Network, the busted name in news.